Hey guys, Bored now back with you for another movie review, another new movie review, fresh off the presses if you like, because this came out today and I've got home not too long ago, so the movie is really fresh in my mind. And on this video I will be reviewing the new live action film version of the DC Comics favourite Bird of Prey, and well, a very long subtitle which I won't go into, but Birds of Prey is all you need to know really. So yes, this came out today, and as I said, I've not too long got back from seeing it, so I'm excited to talk about it. There's a fair bit to talk about. It's a very eventful movie. This of course is sort of like a spin-off from the previous Suicide Squad movie, where of course Margot Robbie, who stars again in this, she starred as Harley Quinn in that movie, and so now she gets her own movie. She also executive produces this one, so she was obviously eager to get more creative control over the character. And you've got a whole host of other really, well, some of them bigger than other names, but a really packed cast anyway. It's very much an ensemble type film, even though obviously Margot as Harley Quinn is the lead. And the film is directed by Cathy, who previously did a film called Dead Pigs, which I've not seen, but I think is more of an indie type style film from what I hear. I think it a black sort of comedy, but I've not seen that one, so I can't really say much about that. So interesting choice. They seem to have gone with a more indie style director, which often can give a fresh sort of feel to these big budget blockbusters. So the plot is quite simple to explain, although it also sounds bonkers, as I set it up. So Harley Quinn at the start of this film has split up with Joker, and it was a bitter split, if you like, because hey, why wouldn't be? It's Joker and Harley Quinn. And it's about her trying to piece together her life, and she does that classic Harley Quinn thing of she goes absolutely crazy. She adopts a pet hyena, which she calls Bruce Wayne, because of course she does. She takes up roller derby and generally spreads all sorts of menace. At the same time as she's like causing havoc across the city, you have a detective played by Rosie Perez, Renee Montoya, who's on her trail, and Harley Quinn comes in contact with the Black Canary character, so another sort of famous comic book character from this sort of universe. And they start sort of hooking up, and there's a scene in an alleyway where Black Canary like saves Harley Quinn, like when she's drunk and she's at the mercy of these two goons. But then the lead villain of the story, Roman Soros, played brilliantly by Ewan McGregor, sees this and is impressed with Canary's skill, and he sort of takes her on board, pays her to be like to work for his team in like there's a whole like diamond heist sort of plot going on, which Harley Quinn gets involved in. So Canary has sort of conflicting emotions about sort of working on the other side of Harley Quinn. She's almost like this go-between type character, and at the same time this young kid, Cassandra Cain, also gets involved in the mix, and she's put at threat because she essentially has the diamond, and you've got all these different characters going after this diamond. So that's as coherent a setup as I can. And in a way, it's quite a straightforward plot. It's just all the craziness, all the colourful antics, and it's very sort of character driven and a lot about the mood and the style. So they have it. I wasn't really sure what to expect from this going in. When I first heard about the film, I was cynical because although I love Margot Robbie and I was sure she was going to be really good in the role, it just felt like it would be another typical like comic book movie. It felt like it might struggle to justify its existence. I mean, when I saw the trailers to this, which did make it look really shambolic to be honest, and sort of quite annoying, and that's going off on the trailer. I mean, obviously when you see the film, it's a different sort of context because you're watching it all the way through in real time. But I think the way the trailers were cut and stuff, I think, I don't think hopes were high based on the trailer. And there's certain concerns than it could have been, like just, well, I know The Joker was a very divisive film, so obviously it has strong supporters, but I'm not one of them. I wasn't a fan of The Joker at all. It had its moments, and obviously Phoenix was excellent, but overall felt like a pointless film, quite a shallow film as well. So it didn't do much for me, The Joker, and I was a bit concerned this was going to be something similar to that. And I've sort of heard some positive reviews like today, or seen positive reviews. I mean, The Guardian gave it 3 stars. I know my mum reads The Sun. They gave it 4 stars, so even higher. And Mark Kermode on the radio really liked it as well. So some strong reviews. So my hopes were high going in, or they were higher. Obviously, they'd been not that high, and then because of some positive reviews, I thought, okay, maybe there's going to be something to this. And the way it opens, you get this opening scene, which is basically this animation type scene, and immediately Harley Quinn comes in with a kind of like almost like over the top mocking sort of doing the gangster New York style accent. And it's just, from the word go, it's like undercutting itself and subverting things and just being really playful with like the timeline and the backstory, and you get these like kind of outrageous images on the screen. So it did have a little bit of the Deadpool type feel where from the word go it's kind of it's breaking up the action, it's talking to the audience rather than just playing out as a regular film was. And so I had that concern that maybe it was going to be a bit too clever for its own good. Then it was going to be a bit too forced and on the nose, the humour, for my liking anyway. But I need to worry because this film is absolutely brilliant. It's a refreshing blockbuster. It absolutely delivers everything you could want from a film like this. Thrills, spills, amazing visuals, amazing design. I mean, the production design on this is absolutely to die for. Really, really good direction by Cathy. And she does an amazing job. Really brings a different sort of edge and sensibility to this. And I think it's really a credit to Margot Robbie for taking such an active part. She obviously was passionate about this. A bit like with I, Tonya, she was executive producer on that. And I think it's a similar thing where she really wanted that, to have that creative control, to get her hands full on into the character. And and it's a good way to protect your character, but also obviously it's a creative process as well. So you really get an opportunity to collaborate with others and just make the best possible film you can. So I think Margot Robbie being involved is a big thing, and just the fact that it is this more indie type director as well. She brings the whole energy of it, and some of it comes from Robbie, I'm sure some of it comes from the director, but it just has this insane punk rock energy to it. It's an adrenaline rush and a half, and yet it works. It absolutely works. It never really falters. It never gets boring. It never gets like too heavy handed. It's just got so much energy, so much style, and is just really inventive with what it's doing, and very, very funny and playful. Then it never really gets boring. You're just on this ride throughout, and it just carries it off perfectly. But at the same time, you get really good character interactions. And there are darker moments. I think when it needs to be, it is dark as well. So it's not too flip. It is very, as I said, it is very sort of knowing and smart with the humour. But the humour's sharp. There's no doubt about that. But there are stories and characters as well, and I think particularly in the last half of the film, it does become darker and there is a bit more tension, but just an absolute blast. I was just carried along, and as I said, I don't think, considering I didn't necessarily have that higher expectations, or I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. And I've never read the comic book, so that's another thing to say. But it just carried me along. It just delivered on every level for me. This is everything I think a modern blockbuster should be. It's absolutely brilliant. So I'll get into some of the details. I mean, I guess I should talk about the cast as well, because it's an outstanding cast. And I think this is a really fresh, forward-thinking, feminist film. I mean, it's to their credit, you've got essentially 4 or 5 really, really strong female characters. Great casting as well. Margot Robbie just embodies Harley Quinn. She's playful, she's funny, she's just so physical in it. She just carries that off. She's got sex appeal, but she brings a lot of that. She's such a skilled actress, Margot Robbie. You just really believe in her character all the way through. And unlike something like Deadpool, which I was never as welled with as some people were, I think at times that film went a bit too far with the kind of dark humour, and I think at times it was a bit too hard to like that character. In this case, there is some really dark humour. I mean, there's a scene, for example, where the Cassandra Cain character, when Harley Quinn finds out that she's got the diamond inside her, she takes her shopping. They're in the supermarket, and she says, "There's 2 ways this can come out of you." And so she points to a knife, and then she points to like these tablets, which will obviously try and get it through the system. So just really dark moments like that. The fact that she's saying, "Yeah, I could cut you open and get it. That's the hard way." So stuff like that. There's some really dark humour in this, but at the same time, Margot Robbie makes the character likeable as well. She grounds it, and her physicality. I mean, the rollerball scene is just amazing. And there's some great slapstick in this film. Look, the way I'll talk more about, but the way things are choreographed, and Robbie's a big part of that. She just throws herself into into the role with gusto. I love the scene in the alley I was talking about with her and Black Canary, where Harley Quinn is basically drunk and she's at the mercies of these goons who are about to load her in the car. And that scene, that becomes, although it's sort of quite edgy, it's also quite funny just because of Margot Robbie's like reactions to them, and it's just kind of that classic, like what you think of with classic like silent comedy, and Laurel and Hardy, Charlie Chaplin, all the greats, just where it's just like this classic sort of pratfalls where you sort of feel sorry for the character, but at the same time it ends up being really funny too. And obviously Black Canary saves her in that scene, and yeah, that's a great example, the way Margot Robbie like uses her body physically. And I'll talk more about some of the set pieces, but they are like really, really well choreographed. But I'm just, Black Canary is played by, if I can say this name right, I might have this wrong. Jurnee Smollett-Bell, something. I'll probably mispronounce, sorry, but she's really impressive. She's fantastic as well. Now, I'm assuming there'll probably be a Black Canary film at some point, because there sort of has to be. And assuming it's the same actress playing her, I think that would be great. I think that would be awesome. And she's a great character. She's just like, when you first see her, she's like this nightclub singer in the club of the main villain, played by Ewan McGregor. And it's this very noirish sort of shot, the way the camera sort of like comes up to her, and the striking colours, and she really has presence and charisma. But for a lot of the film, she's like the opposite of what you see in that club scene. She's more kind of downtrodden, more, I guess, just more laid back and very sort of neutral. She's very kind of sarcastic and deadpan. But again, it's like a gem of a performance. She's absolutely brilliant. She's so quirky and very physical once again. Very, just grounds the character so much. You just engage with her like so much. And that's the thing, it's this film where these characters are really cynical, and one of the things I love about it is that it gets to grips with the classic like idea of Gotham City in the Batman universe, where it is this very like downcast, very sort of cynical, everyone's out to get each other type world, backstabbing. And you see this with all these collection of characters just playing off each other and trying to get this diamond. But at the same time, it has just enough of a touch where it just twists it so that you still engage with the characters and really get into their characters. So I really like that about it, how the black humour is really great. I love jet black humour like this, but at the same time, it's playful and it's funny, and the characters are engaging as well. But as I said, yeah, Black Canary is a real standout. You have Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Huntress, or Balotelli, I think her name is. She comes from a famous crime family, and she's introduced like halfway through the film. And again, another example of just playing with like the structure, just playing with storytelling and breaking things up, is we get this whole introduction with her, because throughout Harley Quinn is like the narrator, and she takes a pause to explain the backstory of Huntress. And there's this great running gag in the film where like in this like exposition scene where Harley Quinn is explaining Huntress's backstory, you get Huntress at various times trying to say her name, trying to say that her name is actually Huntress now. That's what she goes by. But each time she keeps getting interrupted by all these different characters, so it just cuts between them. Really good cuts back and forth, including this guy that she's essentially just off. So some great sort of macabre humour like that. But yeah, really, really smart stuff. Really funny. And there's sort of also another gag where everyone just keeps calling her Balotelli as she's trying to call herself Huntress. But Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I absolutely love anyway, she was in third season of Fargo. She was in what was that film? I'm trying to remember now. I know she was in like one of the Die Hard's films, one of the weaker ones. I think it was the fourth part, but she's been in. Oh, she was in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and even though I'm not that crazy about that film, I thought she was great in that. Really impressed me. But yeah, she's been in a lot now, and she's a really established actress, and she's great. She's got a lot of charisma and presence, and she just looks so badass here, which I guess that's no surprise. And you've got various great supporting cast members. So you have Ellen J. Bosco plays Cassandra Cain, as I said, the young girl, and she obviously becomes central to this whole thing. And again, she's just so amazing. She's really natural, and just feel, because the whole gag about her is that she's really innocent, and that's part of her charm, or part of the way she tricks people, because they would never expect that this girl is like outwitting them and is this like jewel thief or diamond thief. And she's great. She's so natural. You just believe in her. And the relationship with Harley Quinn that builds over the course of the film is an absolute delight. They have some great scenes together. And she's great. It just works so well. I think it's one of those films, as I said, the characters are really diverse. They really play off each other so well. Great chemistry. And it's always a credit in a film, because obviously if this was a TV show, then they would have a lot more time to build the characters individually. But in this, it's quite a... I mean, for nowadays, it's quite a short film. I think it was around about 2 hours exactly, which is a really good running time. I think if it was any longer, it might have been pushing it a bit, but it's around about 2 hours, which nowadays isn't really that long. And when you consider how many characters there are to fit in, it does a great job. It does a great job of like making each one stand out. They're all different from each other, but they all complement each other, and they just gel really, really well. It was great seeing Rosie Perez again, actually, because she's this actress who, back in the 80s and 90s, popped up in a fair few films. You don't really see her anymore, and she just nails it. She's just so perfect as this like hardball, like detective noir type, old school detective. She looks the part. She's self-deprecating, she's funny, but she's very, very capable as well. You can tell this is a really smart, tough detective. And yeah, she does bring some real pathos to that role. I think she really delivers, and it's just a delight to see her again, because you really don't see her in much nowadays. So who knows, could put her back on the map a bit, but she's really good. All the main cast are good, Ewan McGregor, I think, is really effective playing this slimy sort of psychopath. Um, Again, it's just the right level of ham. It's to the point where he's a very entertaining, sleazy villain, but you never lose sight of the fact that he's a threat as well. The fact that he is sort of terrifying and just out of his mind. I was actually going back to when I was talking about Cassandra Cain and her whole thing. One scene I just thought was great with the McGregor villain Roman was the scene when he finds out that Cassandra Cain has outwitted all his people, Black Canary, and there's this other character played by Chris Mercier. I think that's how you say his name. He's another really underrated character actor. He was in Sharp Objects, 6 Feet Under, lots of things. But anyway, Roman's reaction when he finds out that news is just awesome. It's so entertaining. He makes swearing really entertaining. So really, really good characters, really entertaining, and I don't think they could have cast this thing much better. And as I said, they all work. I think it's one of these things where sometimes in this film or sometimes in these sorts of films, and it's something that concerned me when I saw the trailer, because you could tell they're all hamming it up, and it just seemed this really mad, off the wall type film. And my concern is, I think sometimes it's the sort of thing where you have these really, really good dramatic actors. You think of McGregor as a really strong, grounded character. Well, not character actor, but grounded dramatic actor. Probably the same with Robbie and some of the others too. But this just looks like the film where they get to lose their shit. They get to really go for it and have a blast. And sometimes that can be a great thing. It really comes across how much they're enjoying themselves, and it just adds to the energy of the film. Others, it can just become too self-indulgent, and they're not reined in enough, and the film can end up becoming quite a mess and a bit too full on. But this was obviously the good example, because you're still into the characters, you're invested in the story and what's happening, or at least I was. But at the same time, they just deliver their performances with such physicality, just so much gusto and energy. And McGregor is so charismatic. A really great villain, but there is a sinister side to him as well, which clearly comes out in some scenes. I guess I'll talk a bit more about. I've got one scene in mind which I'll mention. Actually, I'll mention it now. I might as well. Makes sense. But there's a scene in the nightclub quite late on in the film where there's this girl at another table who he knows, and she's with her boyfriend or whoever he's meant to be, and she's just casually laughing, and I think it's just their conversation. But McGregor, his character, who at this point is really pissed off, as he is a lot in the film, he just thinks that she's laughing at him, at his misfortune. So he comes over and confronts her, and it's one of these things where it slowly tips over into something more darker, having started off as quite a pulpy, light-hearted sort of thing. And he ends up really scaring her, and he I think he's got a gun or something, and he just points the gun at. It's either a gun or a knife, I can't remember, but he just points that at her and says, "Get up on the table," and then he says, "Dance," forces her to like dance, and she's all like really awkward, and then gets her boyfriend to slowly take her skirt off. Is just so uncomfortable, and it cuts to Black Canary, who's obviously thinking, what have I got myself into with this guy? But it's a terrifying scene. It was really actually quite powerful, and his reactions to it, it's just so sinister and sleazy, and it sort of reminds me a bit of a Lynchian David Lynch type character, someone like the Frank character in Blue Velvet. Just how turned up to 11 he is, just how full of energy and charisma, but also just how terrifying he is, just how psychotic and unhinged, almost more than any other villain in a way. But it's a really great scene. It's very disturbing, and it does show you that this film goes to really dark places, I think, in the second act. So I'll talk about some more scenes and some more set pieces. So I think, as I said, there's some really great slapstick moments, and I think the way a lot of the fight scenes or a lot of the set pieces are organised is that they play out almost like they're choreographed a bit like you would see a classic Hollywood musical or a classic like Fred Astaire type film. And they're just so well like put together and choreographed. They're so physical. The scene in the alley, as I was saying, the rollerblade scene. There's a scene in the warehouse, like a warehouse or something like that, with Cassandra Cain and Harley Quinn, which is like this thing with the cocaine. Like first of all, she gets a shot of cocaine. That's Harley Quinn, and then she like fires one of the bags at one of the goons. Just bouncing off things and using props really in effective sort of ways. And as I said, the design, the production design, the colour schemes, just the way they're worked, just very, very surreal, very trippy. It's almost like one long video game, just this hyper video game with just so much style, so much beauty put into the colours and the world. Do you really believe in this world? It's like it embraces the eye-popping colour of comic books, but at the same time it's cinematic. It plays with like film conventions and pastiches certain genres, so it does have this other side where it's very detective like, it's very like hard boiled, as I said, noir type things. So there's a lot of different things going on, and it really does a good job in balances it out. Another standout scene is the Diamonds the girl best friend scene. Margot Robbie as the Marilyn Monroe figure, and again it just has this twisted sort of payoff to it where she's all glammed up and it comes on and it looks like an MTV style pop video in the best possible way. That is a compliment. It's all trippy and eye popping, but then suddenly she just smacks all these different guys, and visually it's an absolute delight the way they've designed this film and put it together. And yeah, it does have some moments that are quite Lynchy, and I mentioned the Roman. I think he does feel like that sort of classic like Frank Booth or the Willem Dafoe like character out of Wild at Heart, that sort of really angry, disturbed sort of outsider than you see in a lot of Lynch's films. But yeah, also I think just some of the style and some of the use of like neon lights and what have you, and I love the way the film's like designed, including the credits, like the colours of the bold lettering. Um, but it's also worth saying then it really pays off in one hell of a way at the end, and it really builds to that. It's really a special moment where finally these girls all come together and they form what is known as the birds of prey of the title, and they work together. It's just this great moment of realization where they're like, okay, we have our differences, we are opposed to one another, but it benefits us all to work together and to go and kick some ass. And it's a great like punch the air type moment. But again, there's stakes as Cassandra Cain is kidnapped and Harley Quinn and the others have to try and get her. And there is tension because at one point, Renee, the detective, Rosie Perez, is shot, and it really feels like, in the end, she survives, but it really feels like she could die. And it's really treated seriously, you know, Cassandra Cain being kidnapped and Quinn going after it. It feels like she's really bonded with this kid over the course of the film. And it's turned into something a little bit different than just the fact that she has this vested interest in her because of having this diamond. And wow, I mean, just the final couple of like big set pieces are just incredible. Sort of this stuff, it's sort of in like this carnival fairground type thing where they're just bouncing from post to post and they've got like hammers and stuff. And again, it's really good physical, full on slapstick. Just looks so good, just so eye catching. And then eventually this pier at the end, or when Harley Quinn tracks down Roman with Cassandra Cain. Again, that all looks really good. The look of the city and the setting and just how different it all looks is really effective in this film. So it's a great stuff, but it is, as things go along, consistently it's entertaining and funny and witty and has this punk rock spirit, but there are darker moments as well, and I think they land, and the emotional moment. But of course it never gets like sentimental or something. It's just that there is more to the characters than you might expect, and there's enough to them where you engage with them, and apart from the McGregor character, you like them as well, even though they're kind of flawed anti-hero type characters. But they are really cool, the way they come together and how it builds to that big finale. Really, really good stuff, and you get a great, funny little diner scene at the end with the various character, where the diamond is still in the kid, which is great, and they're trying to feed her burritos to get it out. But there's a lot of really fun dialogue. There's some great pop culture references. I like how Harley Quinn is always making fun of Renee, just saying she just talks like this typical like TV detective, and later on Cassandra Cain has a dig at her because she says, whatever it is, do you always talk like an 80s film cop, which is really funny. So I like those little digs and some really clever pop culture references. Another thing I should mention is the soundtrack. Some great music on here, and again, it's just the way it's used as well. But you get a bit of everything. There's a bit of Barry White. There's just all sorts. I mean, some of the songs I don't know. Well, I know them, but I don't know exactly who sings them. I've sort of forgetting names actually as I'm saying this, but yeah, definitely a lot of recognisable songs, but also quite a few I haven't heard as well, or one or two covers as well. But great soundtrack, and the way they use the music is just brilliant, just really really effective. So all round a really satisfying film. I absolutely loved this. It's packed full of highlights. Just some great set pieces and design. It's a really beautiful, entertaining, crazy film that just works. It just ticks all the boxes and delivers. It's a refreshing blockbuster. That's the thing to say. I mean, more blockbusters should be like this. It's forward thinking. It gives you these great female characters. It's surreal. It's entertaining. It's fun. It's fast paced. It just kicks fucking ass. Basically, it's so awesome. A great one to see at the cinema. I mean, some films it doesn't matter too much if you don't see it at the cinema, but this one I think you absolutely should, because you'll get immersed in it, and you should have a blast. I mean, if you don't, okay, and you can tell me your problems in the comments. And to be honest, because I've never read the comic books, then who knows, I can understand maybe hardcore fans of the comics maybe having problems, but it's not for me to say if this is close or not, or if this is faithful, because I don't know. I've never read the comics, and for all I know, this could be like totally unfaithful, if you like, if that's a word. But just judging it as a film and what it's trying to do, I think it just delivers. And I think as a mainstream film, I don't know if you could want much more. Really refreshing, as I said, and a great time at the cinema. So credit to the filmmakers and to the cast. Yeah, Margot Robbie is awesome. Everyone's awesome in it, really. Another little gem in the cast who you don't really see in anything now, but Stephen Williams, who plays like the boss of the Perez character. He was in the X-Files back in like season 2. He played like, I think he was called Mr. X or something, something along those lines. He was like the informant who was giving Mulder and Scully information. So it was originally Deep Throat in season 1, and then Mr. X, played by Steve Williams, came in season 2. So that's where I know him from. I think I've seen him in something else as well, but I've not really seen him much, and he's in this in like quite a small role, but he's in a couple of scenes. So again, all the way down, some really great actors, and I would love to see a Black Canary movie as well. That would be pretty great. But there you have it. I'm giving it a big thumbs up, and I think I might well see it again. I'm gonna get the soundtrack probably, because the music is just great in this film. But it's time to rate it, and I'm going higher than I expected. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10, because it just really did it for me on so many levels, and I had a great time seeing it in the cinema. And it's probably partly the element of surprise, because I maybe was a bit cynical going in, but I thought I can't really have any complaints. It kept me hooked all the way through and was just full of gems and very entertaining, and is a great example of what mainstream cinema can do. It can be subversive. It can come up with new ideas and be fresh and exciting. This is what mainstream films nowadays should be aiming for, I think. But yeah, great job all round. I'm not sure whether there's going to be a part 2 to this, or obviously there will be other spin-off films. And yeah, I'm interested to see them. But this for me was very good. I'm sure some people will be a bit more down on it and have mixed feelings, but I honestly didn't expect to be so enthralled by this film. But I thought it was a really good time. So there you have it, my review of Birds Prey. Sorry, I'm really positive on it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you are new to this channel. And I'll see you guys again soon for another new movie review. Recently I also reviewed, in fact yesterday I reviewed the recent Japanese anime. That's Weathering with You, from the same director as Your Name. So that review is also up on the channel. Also, if you're a horror fan, I recently reviewed the most recent Grudge film. So check out my thoughts on that, also on the channel. And many more. But thanks for listening once again, and I'll see you guys again soon. Goodbye.